My psychopath ex-boyfriend broke into my house and my dog protected me, but in response my sister and the police wanted me to put the dog down. My ex-boyfriend was a psychopath who loved using my autism to manipulate me, often sensory overloading me or making me believe I was worthless. When I found the strength to break up with him, he began harassing me. I didn't feel safe, and got myself protection in the form of a pit bull I named Max, who went on to save my life. My ex broke into my house in the middle of the night with very evil intentions, but before he could lay a hand on me my dog attacked him. I called the police and the ambulance and my ex was sent to the hospital, but the officers told me my dog may need to be put down. I deemed this extremely unfair and complained to the officers, but they said they had no power in this matter. I remember cuddling Max for the rest of the night, crying about what had just happened, as well as the possibility that my dog was going to be taken away from me. In the immediate aftermath of the terrifying home invasion, I couldn't bring myself to leave the house. I did sometimes go outside, but truly only for one thing, and that was to take Max to the vet in order to get some tests done so I could prove he was not rabid and didn't have any diseases. I had no idea what to do with these tests and results I got back from the vet, but I kept them safely tucked away in case I ever needed them as evidence for Max being safe. However, when I wasn't taking him to the vet, I felt like a prisoner in my own home. I didn't step outside. I cuddled with Max constantly, always grateful for his protection and deeply shaken by the whole ordeal. One morning, I was sitting on the couch sipping my morning tea, Max lying at my feet as always. There was a sudden loud knock on the door. My heart jumped into my throat and I was paralyzed with fear. The sound was harmless, but my mind instantly flashed back to the night my ex broke in. Max was on his feet in an instant. His ears perked up. He let out a low growl and positioned himself between me and the door. My hands trembled and I had to take a few deep breaths to calm myself down. I slowly approached the door with Max by my side. I peeked through the peephole and saw the familiar blue uniform of our local mailman. I felt relieved. I opened the door a crack, just enough to greet him and accept the package he was holding out. He told me good morning, and I told him thank you, grabbed the package and closed the door. As the door shut, I let out a sigh of relief. My pulse slowly began to settle, but I knew I wasn't ready to leave the house for anything besides taking Max to the vet yet. Max nuzzled my leg, sensing my stress, and I reached down to scratch behind his ears. "It's okay, Max," I whispered, more to reassure myself than him. "It's just the mailman. We're safe." After weeks of my version of house arrest, my world felt like it had collapsed around me, and I reached out to my sister Jane for support. I thought she would understand and come to my side, but her reaction was the last thing I expected. Jane refused to come over. She said that she wouldn't feel safe with my wild, rabid dog around. We got into a huge argument. I tried to explain how Max saved my life, but she wouldn't hear it. To her, an animal who had attacked someone had the chance to do it again, regardless of the circumstances. She demanded that I put Max down, and I wasn't about to do that. Max saved my life, but she didn't see that. I couldn't believe my own sister would ask me to do something so cruel. I was sitting on the edge of the couch, clutching my phone when I finally got the courage to call my parents. The events of the past few days had left me feeling more isolated than ever, and I desperately needed their support. When my mom answered, her voice was warm and reassuring. She asked how I was holding up. I told her everything, about my ex breaking in, how Max had protected me, and the argument with Jane. I asked if they could come over because I really needed to talk to both of them. My mom agreed immediately. When they arrived, I could see how worried they were about me. We sat down in the living room and I began to retell them everything. My mom reached out and held my hand and told me how proud she was of me for standing up for Max. She understood that I viewed Max as a part of the family, but my dad looked troubled. He leaned forward and said that while he understood Max had saved me, we had to consider everyone's safety. He suggested that maybe Max could stay with someone else for a while so that Jane felt safe too. I tried to explain that Max was the reason I felt safe on my own. Max was my protector, my lifeline. They refused to get involved in the argument but told me if I needed them that they would be there. The tension in the room was clear, and I felt tears welling up in my eyes. I told them both that Max wasn't a threat, and that if I lost him, I didn't know how I'd cope. Their divided opinions left me feeling torn, but at least they said they were there for support. In a last-ditch effort to get through to Jane, I asked if she would meet me at a cafe to talk without Max. I was terrified of leaving the house alone, but I was willing to face that fear to try and salvage my relationship with my sister. She was hesitant, but agreed. Meeting Jane at the cafe was one of the hardest things I've ever done. My anxiety was through the roof, but I knew I had to do it. Sitting across from Jane at the small, cozy cafe, I felt my hands start to tremble. Things like this would be scary for everyone, but due to my autism, I truly think my fear was amplified. I took a deep breath and greeted Jane. We had a bit of small talk. After catching up, I opened up to her for the very first time about my relationship with my ex. I told her how he made me feel like trash. I started with telling her how he wasn't who she thought he was. She knew him to be the loving, perfect Prince Charming because I never told her any different. I was so scared of my ex that I thought if I told anyone the truth, he would hurt me. But I gathered up my strength and I went on to tell her everything. How he would criticize me for everything, like how I talked, how I dressed, and even how I moved.